Hey everyone, this is Steve Schmid with Simple Pump again. Today we're going to talk about rod gland seal maintenance. So I'm going to show you guys how to change the seals on your rod gland. When you get your seal kit, when you purchase your initial system, there's going to be two sets of seals. There's going to be seals for your rod gland, which is here at the top. Then there's going to be seals for your pumping cylinder that go on the piston inside of the cylinder. We'll cover that in a different video, but today we're going to talk about replacing the rod gland seals. Now, depending on when you purchased your system, there would be two different types of rod glands. Early or late 2011, 12, 13, we used what we called our XL rod gland. It's a single piece that's about 7 inches long and has a guide that steadies the rod gland down into the riser tube. This one will need to be pulled out differently from our current design, which our current design is actually two pieces where the guide is pressed down into the actual riser tube and the rod gland is shorter and just threaded into the top of the pump head. Okay, so for either one of these, first thing you need to do is you need to take the handle off. So that's going to be the 4 bolts that connect it to the pump head. Okay, typically once those bolts are taken out, this unit's going to drop, right? Because you had to lift that up in order to get the bracket connected, and that's by design so that the piston is not sitting on the bottom of the cylinder. Once those are out, remember you got to go opposite of what you would expect because it's left-hand thread on the pump rod. Then you can just spin this around. Now your handle's off, and we can go ahead and take the rod gland out. All right, now we're going to cover the older style rod gland. As you can see here, it's quite a bit longer, and this piece obviously is not going to go through the pump head. So there's two-step process here, and of course once it's inside of the riser tube, the pump head actually has to come all the way off in order to get the rod gland out. So that's fairly simple. Take 2 wrenches. One above, one below. Break that pump head loose because it'll be tight. And just unthread it completely. Once it's loose, you'll see there's an O-ring right here. You want to keep that in place because it needs to be there when you put it back. You also see that now you've got the whole rod gland coming out. Next, you'll want to take it out of the pump head. So you'll want to unthread this bottom piece. And then you'll want to unthread it. Sometimes it'll take a wrench holding here from the pump head. And then you almost have it out, but not quite. You can see these threads here. So you have a second set of threads that you need to unthread through the pump head. Now that the rod gland is out, we can show you guys how to change the seals. All right, now we've got our rod gland and we're going to remove the existing seals. The seals are right at the top, just inside. Now, very old style rod glands will have one seal. For many, probably since 2004, 2005, we've had 2 seals in the rod gland. So that'll be the more common situation. I like to use a tool like this that's got a pointy edge. You can use a small flat tip screwdriver. And what you're going to do is you're just going to push in from the top side of the seal and dig underneath it, grab it, pull it out, then do the same thing for the second one, pull it out. Now you've got both the seals out. The next step, make sure there's no debris in there so that they go in, square and straight. Now here's the trick. You need to make sure that the U-cup portion of the seal is down because you're trying to prevent water from coming up. The easiest way to get these in is to grab one end, squeeze it together, placing the other end inside of the groove, and then push all the way around the circumference of it to get it into the groove. So that's your first one. Then you would do the same thing on the second one. Always do the bottom groove first. And now, sometimes you get a little lip there. You can use your tool to push that in and get it flat. Make sure you get your fingers in there and that it's smooth so that your pump rod can go back through it easily. It's the same process with the smaller gland. Grooves are the same size, seals pointing down, remove them the same way. And then you've got rod gland seals that are changed. All right, guys, now that we've got our new seals in for this type of rod gland, we're going to want to put it back into the pump head before we put the pump head back on the pump. One thing to note, there is an O-ring that goes in the very top of the pump head. You want to make sure that's in there because without that, water would leak out of the top when you pump. So we're going to put the first set of threads through the pump head. Once that's through, push it down to the second set of threads. Get that nice and tight. If you need to use a pair of pliers to get it tighter, then you can do so. Okay, now it's ready to go back on the pump. All right, now it's time to put the pump head back on the riser tube. As I mentioned, there is an O-ring here. Make sure that that is in place. I always like to squeeze it, make sure that it's tight inside of the O-ring groove before I put this back on. You're going to slide it back over the top of the pump rod. Bring it down. You may feel a little resistance with those new seals, bringing the pump rod up through it. And then you're going to feel a little bit of resistance down here as you push past that O-ring. Now you're going to want to be very careful. These are fine threads, so you're going to want to make sure you don't cross thread them. If it feels smooth going on, then you're good. If it gets tight really quick, then back it off and try again. So you'll want to take this, bring it all the way down. It's tight by hand. Grab your wrenches. Give it one last tighten. Make sure it's nice and tight so that O-ring seals. Now your pump head is back on with new rod gland seals and you're ready to put the handle back on. All right, so now we're ready to put the handle back on the pump. First, we're going to actually thread the clevis into the pump rod. And again, this is reverse threads. Be a little tricky sometimes getting it started. You want to go in counterclockwise to tighten it. Once it's up there, grab your wrench, hold tight. Now, the pump is designed such that you have to lift the piston off of the bottom of the cylinder in order to connect the handle. If you have a very deep set, you're going to need help with this because you're going to want to pull it up, and then someone's going to need to hold it while the other person connects the bolts. Once one is connected, your partner can let go of the pump rod. May need to wiggle the handle a little bit just to get it to go. But you'll want to get all 4 of your bolts in. Make sure they're nice and tight. And then I always like to tighten once everything's connected. Tighten that pump rod one more time because you can get a good torque on it. And now your rod gland seals are changed.